Talking with Grant Holcomb, director of our commercial division on the Duncan Duo team. Grant at theduncanduo.com, 813-777-4512. If you're looking to buy or sell commercial real estate, you can contact Grant directly. If you're an agent and you want to refer to a competent, experienced, high-volume commercial real estate agent that actually answers his phone on weekends and evening, then he is your guy. Also, one of the funniest guys I know. So if you like, if you have a good sense of humor, Grant is legit. Grant could legitimately have done stand-up comedy. I am 100% certain Grant could have done stand-up comedy. So if you enjoy looking at commercial real estate and having fun, enjoying yourself, and you have a good sense of humor, Grant is your guy. Again, Grant at theduncanduo.com. or 813-777-4512. So I talked about this last week. JP Morgan Chase, Bank of America, Merrill, all the big banks are now coming out and predicting 3 Fed rate cuts this year. Each of the next 3 meetings, they're predicting 25 basis points each time, meaning that we'll probably see about a 75 basis point drop in the Fed rate. However, mortgage markets kind of move ahead of that. Most of the 25 basis point in September, because now they're saying it's 99% going to happen, has already been priced in.
Sure.
Because by the time those mortgages fund, it's going to be after that. So we're not going to see 0.75 drop in interest rates from where they are right now, probably more like a 0.4 or 0.5 because the market kind of adjusts as those things become locks. And it's funny, I think during the last election, I started looking at Polymarket. Have you ever looked at Polymarket?
I've been on there plenty of times.
Polymarket's awesome. Like, you can't use it in the U.S. yet. We can use it and look at it, but like all the money that's bet, it doesn't have a U.S. license yet. It will, and I'm going to invest in it. I'm doing everything I can to try and invest in it because I think it will absolutely skyrocket when it gets its, official U.S. seal of approval. It basically is rating all 3 of those cuts, and the first one's like 99%. A second cut's like 90%. Third cut's like, also a high percentage. So those Fed rate cuts lead to more people jumping off the fence, affordability improving, sellers jumping off the fence to sell because they see the market starting to improve, as well as, residential sellers deciding to sell because now the rate will be a little lower on what they're going to buy. And I think smart money right now is getting ahead and thinking about transacting now. We've seen a pickup on the residential side. I think you could testify to this too on the commercial side because people see where this is going, and history teaches us lessons. The history teaches us that when interest rates go down, prices go up, right? And I think it's going to be the same residential and commercial. I think we see interest rates drop and prices, capital markets loosen up, prices will rise and keep rising. So as a buyer right now, as a seller, of course, the market will improve, and there's always that could backfire.
Sure.
There's storms, there's different things, there's your own risk position. But I think the market is going to see some improvements in residential and commercial for sure.
Totally agree. I've talked to several buyers who they're in the same boat. They're like, well, if rates come down just a little bit, we're ready to pull the trigger. They're sitting on the fence.
Yep.
So,
and if we do see those cuts, they come off the fence.
Exactly. And that's, the conversation I have with them is kind of like you would have on the residential side, like what you just said. Hey, when rates, historically, when rates come down, prices start to trend up. So it's probably a good time to jump in now, knowing the rates are gonna fall.
And look, having done this for as long as I have, for 20 years, success leaves clues. Some of the wealthiest people that I know bought lots of real estate prior to the big run-ups, right? And then we're able to make big exits. So we know the big run-up comes when interest rates are lower. What I believe we're going to see, and why I think the market will show some signs of improvement for both buyers and sellers, because a lot of the sellers too, what people don't realize is when you say, oh, well, if it's going to go up, why would I sell? Well, 2 things. One, because most of those sellers are going to buy something else, right? Even the commercial ones, they're going to roll it into sometimes even something more expensive, meaning that the gain is even greater when they leverage it. So I think you'll just see an increase in activity. I think you'll see the capital markets will more well-rounded. You'll see more transactions happening. And the reality is it's best to act before that. You want to act before everyone starts acting. We know it's coming. Again, the only thing, in my opinion, that stops 2027 from being potentially a record-breaking year. 26 will be better than 25, and 27 will be considerably better than 26 because we're going to keep seeing rates head in this direction. We've heard the president say he thinks the rate should be at 1. So that I think is a little unrealistic. We would have some problems going right to 1, but again, knowing him, that's part of his deal making. 150% tariffs on China, and we end up 20, which is great, right? But he does that. It's a negotiating strategy. I see through it. We know it's heading in that direction. The only thing that stops that in Tampa Bay is natural disaster or some sort of cataclysmic, either COVID repeat. But then I don't think it stops. Then I think it does the same thing that we saw during COVID. But you could see a short-term obstacle, with the markets. But it's a natural hurricane, natural disaster, war on U.S. land. Those are the things that I think could slow that. Otherwise, 26 and 27, I think are going to be record-breaking.
They're going to be, I agree. And a lot of folks I talk to in the industry feel the same way, that 26 will be good, 27 is going to be great. And I'll tell you right now, just since January, I've noticed personally my business has increased tremendously.
It has. Yeah, we've done multiple several $1 million deals. And
personally, I've done more since January of this year than I did combined the prior 2 years.
Yeah,
it's trending in the right direction, and I think it's going to keep going. And
I think again, the smart money right now is saying, look, we can do the math. The maths. It's coming. Why wait until everyone else starts piling in? Because what it's taught us is that when interest rates drop, prices rise. You're either going to have a high payment now, or a high price of the home later, which will translate into a high payment. Again, the smart money right now is getting in. And even if the debt service on the asset is more, or the loan and mortgage is more on the house than you're really comfortable with, we know where rates are going. Like, they're going to go down. We know the data is already pointing at that, but we also know that President Trump is going to put a new Fed chair in. He's replaced one of the governors. Two of the governors already were leading towards wanting to cut rates. Whoever he puts in is going to be powerful and influential enough that we know rate cuts are coming. And when those come, the real estate market definitely improves. So I use Grok a lot. I
love
stuff into Grok.
Yeah.
And Grok is an AI of Elon Musk, part of XAI, part of X, Twitter, kind of that landscape. I personally think it's the best AI. Like, I love it. It's the cool things you can do. It's responsive. It's fast. It's super detail oriented. And look, I used ChatGPT for a while too, but once I started testing Grok, I think it's better. And so I will ask it and say things like, what do you think is going to happen in commercial real estate? And literally it's saying the same thing we're saying right now. So AI even knows like where it's heading. So why wait until all that activity shows up to transact? If you're a buyer right now of commercial real estate, you should not be waiting. You should lock it up now. You can always refinance, do cash out refis. You can always refinance the opportunities later when rates drop, because we know in lieu of those natural disaster type scenarios, that's where we're headed.
Yep. So totally agree. Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think when you're talking to commercial clients, and this is just for my own kind of understanding because I don't know the answer, how often on the residential side, it's mostly all finance? There are certainly some cash deals. There's hedge funds, there's investors, and the really high end, there can be some cash. In commercial, what's it split like? Is it mostly cash, mostly financed? Is it split evenly? Does it differ from residential in the terms of the number of people that are financing versus paying cash?
I would say, just in my personal experience, I would say it's pretty split. I've had several cash deals. I've had several finance deals.
Yep.
Obviously, the cash deals are easier for the most part as far as for the client.
You don't have the hoops to jump through.
Not as many. You still have to go through all the due diligence and all that, but you're not having to rely on the financing aspect with the bank. So, but yeah, I would say it's probably split pretty much down the middle.
Cool. And closing times on commercial too. A residential sale can happen 30, 40 days. Set that expectation on the commercial side. It's typically not happening like that.
Yes.
It can, but not typically.
Your due diligence period is usually not, it's way more than 30 days. So commercial deals can take 3 months to close. They could take a year to close. They could take 2 years. It just depends on the variables for that particular asset.
Yeah.
So it's way different from residential in that regard where, and the other thing in commercial deals is a lot of times the deal doesn't stick together because maybe something goes wrong in in one of the inspections.
Higher cancellation rate.
Higher cancellation. I would say in residential, I don't quote me on this, but I would think your success rate's probably 90%.
It's 85, 90%.
Okay, close.
We're actually seeing the highest cancellation rates right now that we've seen in a long time because things are tense. I think that'll soften up as rates drop. But it's 85, 90%. Commercial,
it's probably
much higher.
50 maybe. Yeah. It's there's a lot more to it. So
yeah, that makes sense.
It's definitely different.
And I think that's the other reason why a lot of agents don't get into it too. Like, I mean, it's no secret. I've talked about it on the show. I think a lot of real estate agents they're poor at financial planning. They get into the business. They don't have money saved, or they spend the money they make and they don't put money away. And even if they're smart enough, it's hard for them to have enough income, savings, or wealth generated like you and your wife have done to be able to say, you know what, let me move into commercial where I'm not going to get paid for 3 to 6 months
right.
or a year.
Could be longer. Could be a year. Right.
Whereas a residential agent's got those checks coming in like every 30, 45, 60 days, like on the regular. Commercial doesn't do that. And I think that's also a barrier that probably keeps some agents out, but it probably keeps a lot of agents out that probably need to be out. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
right.
Because if you are helping business owners and you are helping people buy expensive assets and you can't manage your own financial livelihood to be able to go a while and not get paid, you're probably not the right person to advise someone on their multi-million-dollar assets. Right?
100% accurate.
You're going to guide them poorly because you've made poor financial decisions on your own. And I think that's probably the one nice deterrent that commercial has that sometimes I wish residential had, because some of the people we got to deal with. The one thing, like the challenge in your industry is, sometimes you can't get people to answer the phone. The challenge on our side of the industry is sometimes you have to talk to these people and you got to help them figure out, like, what are you doing? Like, how do you not know this? So yours, you don't have that obstacle. You can't get them on the phone. We get them on the phone and then we're like, how am I going to make this deal happen? How am I going to help my client? Because this person has no idea what they're doing. So the barrier to entry is higher in commercial for sure.
Significantly.
So